Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, so I absolutely love these two. I host an internet radio show and I got both of them on to talk about Sue's healing. And the reason I met Sue and Robert was because a friend of mine had come down to do a talk at one of the previous events in Nottingham. So I'm going to reiterate that story, but I'm going to give you a bit of background to it, why we're not mentioning any names. And I know this story firsthand, so if I tell you where I came into the story, a friend of mine said a mutual friend had got cancer. She had 4 tumours in her brain. She'd been given 8 weeks to live by the local oncologist, we're from Hull. And she had 2 kittens, and she couldn't rehome the kittens, so she asked would I have 2 kittens. So I didn't want any more cats, but I said okay. And the 2 daughters, teenage children, were fostered out to local family. She actually attended a local meeting with all the social workers, 12 people around a table, to informing the children that they were making final arrangements for the mum. Now, our mutual friend has 3 degrees in biology. She's been a nurse, a palliative care nurse for over 30 years. And even though she's in the NHS and in the system, she's very aware of natural healing. I purposely use the word natural, not alternative, because for me the word alternative implies it's a different form of healing, but for me it's about nature. So she said to our mutual friend, "You're not going to die." And what they did is they did lots of research and they changed her diet to a juicing diet, raw organic food. Now organic is absolutely essential in this story. Initially she didn't do organic food, she just did the raw diet. Then also things like high dosage vitamin C, vitamin D. Cannabis oil was a very fundamental factor in this particular lady's healing because she was extremely poorly. And she was very resistant to looking at cannabis oil because we've all had this perception of, oh, it's marijuana, it's a drug, it's illegal, we shouldn't do it. But she went to a talk at something called Truth Juice in Hull. And a wonderful guy called Dean Oliver, who's now become a good friend, who's also been a guest on the show, he gave her half a match head size of cannabis oil. And bearing in mind at the time she was actually taking, she was on morphine, diamorphine, to reduce the pain because all under her arms was swollen. She was in a very bad way, and she took it, and within 5 minutes the pain disappeared. So it opened her mind up to the potential of, even if nothing else, it's going to stop this pain. So it led her to listen to our mutual friend, to start the juicing diet. And what was happening, they'd found somebody in Leeds who was going to do a test on her for a new treatment. And when she went for a scan to look at what the tumours were like, they couldn't find them. And this was several months later. Now, bearing in mind she was given 8 weeks to live. She went back to the hospital in Hull, the specialist oncologist hospital, and they were in the room with the doctor for over an hour, and at the end of the hour he actually said to her, "You're cancer free, we can't find your tumours. We're worried that we can't find the tumours." She told him that she changed her diet, she told him that she was taking cannabis oil even though he'd advised her not to, and his words were, "You've responded unusually to our treatment." It's like he couldn't conceptualise, or couldn't get his head around the fact that this lady had done this. So what happened was she basically changed her diet back to eating normal again. The cancer came back. So this time she went at it more vigilantly. She stuck to an absolute organic diet and she made a decision this was her diet for life. She prayed, she meditated. It's a whole approach, so it isn't just one thing that fits all. It's about looking at the whole, using natural stuff, and that includes your mental health, your emotional health, the diet, the nutrition, all the stuff that you put into your whole of your physical being. When she did that, she then went back and got a completely clear diagnosis of cancer. Now, this story involves, because it was so miraculous, because this lady 2.5 years later was still alive and completely cancer free and looking radiant, my friend who's the nurse and this lady did an interview. And it went on the internet, and within a few days it had over 7,000 views. And on this interview they were talking about some of the things that Robert's just mentioned, about you going to an oncology ward and there's machines with chocolates and sweets, or you go into the doctor's office and there's sugary sweets in there. When you look at the actual cause or how cancer thrives, it's like sugar and acidity and the very things that we should be avoiding, they were actually available in the areas of the hospital. So this nurse mentioned it, and she mentioned about that she'd handheld this friend through this process and she was now cancer free. What happened was she got suspended from active duty. The senior management within the NHS threatened her to lose a job. She was only 3 years off receiving a pension, so she was absolutely petrified of losing a job. She had 2 daughters. So she had to take the video off the internet. Then she wasn't allowed to discuss it with anybody. Now, for somebody who watched this from the outside looking in, I knew that natural medicine worked. I've always been, into natural medicine, but what really astounded me was how the system behaved in response to this lady, because not once did they get either lady in and ask them, how did you do this? We sent you home to die, we gave you 8 weeks to live. They weren't interested in the process. They were more concerned about the reputation of the NHS than the actual process that saved somebody's life. So when you've seen this firsthand, you can't unsee it. And I'm a holistic therapist, and I've had people sit with me and we'll do some pain management. I do something called EFT, which reduces pain, and look at emotional health. And I've had people refusing to listen to what I'm saying. They listen to the man in the white coat, the oncologist, because he's the expert, because they're frightened of not listening. They'll go away and get the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy, and unfortunately I've had to let that go, and I've actually witnessed people die when I know if they change their diet, if they heal their emotional self, they can be cancer free. The body is amazing. Our bodies know exactly what to do, and the disease is literally a response to us not being at ease. And it's all about energy. The nutrition that we put in feeds the cells. The toxins, the cells move away from it. If you put nutrition in, the cells move towards it. It's the same with emotions. If you heal unhealed emotions, your health is boosted. If you live a life of stress, what happens is your immune system is depleted because you're constantly in fight or flight. It's the whole approach to natural living. And if we go back to things from the ground that haven't been sprayed with toxins, that haven't been sprayed or haven't been grown in soil with it, got no nutrition in it, it's very difficult these days as well. And I would say the most appropriate way to actually get access to this stuff is grow it yourself. But on the times you can, I would suggest that you do your very best to get organic, natural food. And actually quite amusing, us 3 came here and we had to nick to Aldi and we couldn't find any organic food, and we've eaten stodge tonight, and we said we weren't going to bring it in here and eat in here. But typically, because I've seen this, I make every effort not to eat food that's not organic. And people think you go overboard, think you're crazy because you're actually making that choice. But if you understand how it builds up and builds up and builds up, you're just giving your immune system a job to do to remove those toxins out of your body. And when you see somebody turn around from stage 4 cancer and actually be alive, I saw her 2 weeks ago working in a vegan cafe. She looked absolutely radiant. Radiant. This is now 3.5 years later. She's still alive and she's cancer free. So it's possible, and there's amazing stories that if people look at this and meet these people firsthand, and this is what I was saying to my friends who've come down here, when you meet these people firsthand, it's very different than someone telling you secondhand. Yeah? And what we tend to do is trust the doctors, trust the hospitals. Now don't get me wrong, I think they're well-meaning people, but they've been indoctrinated by a system that's controlled by Big Pharma. There's so much money in cancer, and like Robert just said, the amount of money that's been thrown at this. And I would absolutely signpost people to watch the Truth About Cancer series. When I saw that, I cried, and that's when I first saw these 2 lovely people on that video, because there's not just one solution to make your immune system do what it does well. There's hundreds of these solutions that are out there. And it's really open your mind, stop being frightened to push back at this system. If they tell you you've got to have radiotherapy, they tell you you're going to have chemotherapy, do your research first. There's so many people who have chosen not to go down that road and have boosted their immune system and are completely cancer free. And it's so hard really to watch the people who are frightened by the system, by the doctors, and make the choice because they're pretty much bullied into it sometimes. Bullied into it because, and then families, it's another thing, families are frightened of people choosing the holistic natural route. Yeah, and what I would suggest is get as informed as you possibly can. If you get informed and you know your stuff, that contributes to your healing as well because you know it's possible. I'm a hypnotherapist as well as an EFT practitioner. I know that if you make suggestions to your unconscious mind, that becomes the reality. And there have been people who've been diagnosed with cancer, and it turns out after they died, they didn't even have cancer, but they died as if they had cancer. So don't underestimate the power of your self-belief. You know, there's some amazing books out there. Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo. If you look at that, it talks about how you start to believe and know and take every action within your power to change your physiology. Your body will fight anything that's thrown at it.
Can I just say, Joe, last year when I spoke to you, you Skyped, didn't you, with me?
Yeah.
Last year I'd lost a third of my hair to alopecia, and from speaking with you for, I think you gave me an hour of your time, didn't you? Talking, is it EFT you call it? And within a week or two, all those awful feelings I had, I didn't even think much had happened when I spoke to you.
Mm-hmm.
But within a few weeks, I started to feel so much better about myself, and now, you know, I'm getting there. And it was really helpful. I really appreciated that.
And thank you. And I think this is really important. It's the whole approach, because our emotions, we're not really taught how to deal with our emotions, but the emotions are the signalling system from the body. If you have a happy emotion, so an emotion like love, it's really high in frequency. And if you have that thought or words, it goes into your biology, and that high frequency makes your cells, if it's love and it's kind and it's caring, your cells self-organise, they run naturally in line with nature. But if you put a thought into your physical being that's negative and low in frequency, it all gets distorted. The cells are in fight or flight, you're on high alert, your immune system is like on overdrive, your white cells flood into your body. And if you're constantly having negative, low vibrational thoughts, your body is constantly in that high alert state. So you don't actually give your chance for your immune system to do its proper job, because it's constantly on high alert. High alert is only supposed to be there when we're in danger. So a really important factor, and what I personally believe, is that part of the program of your healing isn't just diet, it's emotional health. I mean, for example, I saw a person who's an EFT expert who deals with cancer, and they say they do several things as a process to do. First of all, they look at anybody who's got cancer if they've had a significant emotional trauma in the past 10 years, and they work through releasing the emotional pain of that trauma. Once they've actually done that, then they actually work on the diagnosis. Because that diagnosis, being told that C word, that you've got that life-threatening illness, is a massive shock to the body, to the system, to the mind, to the soul. So we work on releasing the trauma of that diagnosis. Once you've released the diagnosis, then you start to work on believing that you can heal yourself, believing that you're healed already. But if you try to go in and say, I'm healed already, without healing the low frequency energy in your physical being, your body's going to resist allowing the positivity in. So it's important to work on the traumas, and once you actually work on them, you feel so much better, your immune system works better, your unconscious programs stop kicking in and putting you into an overdrive. So it's really important, as you know, to consider looking at emotional health as the package as well as your nutritional health. But nutrition, I mean, some people have just done the nutrition stuff and they literally have to turn stage 4 cancer around, and we've met so many people now. I mean, it's just, you know, once you see it and you meet more and more people and you want to shout from the rooftops, and people literally glaze over and shut down, and they look at you as if you're not an oncologist, you're not a doctor, what do you know? Yeah, and I've had people say that to me. And once you know somebody who's done it, it doesn't matter what anybody says, you can't unsee what you've seen, you can't unknow what you really know at your core. So, any questions?
I think one thing was that the lady that you was talking about with the cancer, she had lymphoma as well, didn't
Yes,
she?
she did.
She came to our meeting December 2014,
true, yeah.
and her neck was as wide as her head. She was in a terrible state, and I remember her going numb down one side.
Yeah.
And again, the tumours. So she was, you know, I spoke to her a number of times after that, and I mean, she got a copy of our book, but she did better than that. She got this lady to help her and went to live with her while she did that. So absolutely incredible. We'd love them to come and share their testimony.
I'm sure they want to, but I don't think they want to. I nearly said her name. The lady who is the survivor, who's healed herself, she was very frightened at the time that the state would take her children off her because she was using cannabis. She was so frightened of that, so she wanted the video taken down. And then the other lady, she's almost at retirement. So I think once we get this lady who's the nurse who has got her retirement money, then I think she'll be ready to shout it from the rooftops, because they really did put her through some significant trauma, because she thought she was going to lose her job, and her pension was dependent upon it. And to be honest with you, I had an idea that Big Pharma controlled our NHS, and I was suspecting it, but when I actually saw that, and I saw it for real firsthand, somebody lose their jobs because of this, because they were speaking out in a truthful way. And I want to express, I don't blame the doctors and the nurses, you know, because they're stuck in this system. This is a nurse who's stuck in the very same system, who's very knowledgeable, but at the same time, it's time for us to start pushing back. There's too many people who have died. There's too many people being told there's only one route, and there's so much money in that. And the diagnosis, even if you actually survive after chemo and radiotherapy, if you look at the 10-year life after, most people who've actually had chemotherapy or radiotherapy, a lot of them pass away. And it's not to put any fear into people, it's to put knowledge in, research it first. I mean, on the Truth About Cancer video, the very first episode, it talks about radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and it tells you where it comes from, and it tells you about, they use the description, it's like sending napalm into a forest to kill the ants. So you kill all the forest, but you're not guaranteed to get all the ants. And what happens is your immune system's completely damaged by this chemotherapy, because it's a massive toxin. And one of the lists that it causes cancer. I mean, how crazy is that? And especially when you know there are so many alternative or natural remedies across the planet, across all these clinics, on the Truth About Cancer, so many hundreds of experts and survivors telling their versions of their stories, and they're all alive today, including things like pancreatic cancer, which is supposed to be non-curable. The lady on Truth About Cancer, 10 years later, cancer-free. So it's about us believing it, taking our control back, our power back, and the difficult thing is changing our habits and our lifestyles. We've had a convenient fast food. It's not easy to do it, and I think making a choice to grow your own, to buy from local organic farmers, to anything if it's in a tin, anything that's pasteurised. Don't eat anything that's got a shelf life, means it's shortening your life. It's like, really look at these E's and these ingredients, and just go back to everything natural. Mother Nature knows best, and we are all natural. We're natural beings.
Last year, was the lady that you're talking about that survived it?
Yeah.
She did have chemo.
She did.
Originally, didn't she?
Yes,
so
she did.
Even if you go through that, it
Yeah.
proves that you can
It's a really good point.
recover from that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
people who've had chemo and then, you know, decided whatever to try the natural
100%.
way.
Yeah, and she had chemo and radiotherapy, and then the second time around she told them no.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that I would absolutely personally suggest, look at cannabis oil for that, because, you know, the THC in it, and it's the one, unfortunately, that's not legal. So, you know, it's about, the CBD is really good for it, but the THC tends to be, it's the one she used, and she had to have such a high dosage because her cancer was so prominent in her body that it was knocking her out for about 2 weeks. She literally went to bed, and she had to take it as a suppository because it made her feel too dizzy and too tired. So she threw everything at it. You know, I think when she realised that she didn't want to leave her daughters, yeah, and she gave herself a reason to live, and that's another thing, is give yourself a purpose. And, you know, even if it's just to stand up and be the person here next time, sharing this story with others, because this is what it's going to take. It's these real life stories that are going to inspire people. Stand here, tell your story, because that touches people far more than someone's second-hand, third-hand videos. It's the real life stories that makes the difference.
It just shows that actually, even with bombarded with chemo and radiotherapy, she got over it with the right stuff in the body.
Yeah.
And 3.5 years later, cancer-free still.
Yeah.
And they told her hers was an aggressive cancer. You know, it was very, very aggressive. And, you know, they told her there was no chance of survival. And this is the thing, it's rubbish. We are in control of our immune systems if we take responsibility. And that's the thing, you might have to give ourselves a kick up the backside, literally. And actually, the reason us three are here from Hull today is we're actually interested in opening a wellness centre. And we have to be careful what we call it. You know, you can't say you heal cancer because of the 1939 Cancer Act, which again is very suspicious to me. Why would you have an act for one illness that you're not allowed to say you can cure? It just seems a bit strange, and it's one of the most prolific illnesses that's sort of the scourge of the planet right now, of human beings, and it just seems ridiculous that you can't say you can cure it. So we have to be very careful with our wording. So what we say is we're teaching people to boost their immune system so they're free from illness and disease. Yeah, and when you actually look at this, we can be free from illness and disease. And one thing I always quote when I came to your first presentation, I observed there was people there and they brought their loved ones along, and they were talking about how they changed the diet, and the loved ones would change the diets to support them. And they were reporting arthritis disappearing, diabetes disappearing, obesity disappearing. So it's not just about the C word, it's literally about our immune system and our natural health. Yeah, we have more energy, we have more motivation, and I'm a very spiritual person these days, and I believe when we eat healthy, meditate, heal our emotions, we connect to something on a different level on that way. And we've all been shut down because everything's about frequency. And if we can actually raise our frequency through the food that we eat, live food like fruit off a tree or from the ground. Yeah, most of us have been eating dead food, dead animals, and putting dead cells into our bodies. And not only that, it's like the energy of what those beings have gone through in the system. Everything transfers energetically through the adrenaline, through the energy of the beings. So again, one of the things to consider is cut meat out. For lots of reasons. I do that for moral reasons. I've been vegetarian/vegan now, vegan for 3 years, vegetarian for 20 odd years, because I love animals and I don't like how humanity treats them. But when I look at what we're doing collectively to another species or to other beings, and then putting that physical energy into our energy, it's not surprising that we're ill from it. If you understand how energy works and that we're energetic beings, every single part of you is energy. And what we're doing is putting the higher frequency energy in. Happy thoughts, loving thoughts, healthy live food, moral values, all of those things all contribute to the whole being that you are.
Yay!
How inspirational. Yeah. And we have quite a number of people that are doing this. And we try to get them. You mentioned, Joe, that when people heal, come back and inspire other people, and that's what we wish for. That's what we would hope for, and that's something for you to aim for, to inspire and encourage other people. Because it happened in this place here. We had a meeting once with. There's a guy that had lung cancer. I think there was 15 tumours on his lungs. And he's actually written his story in the back of our book.
Is that Connell?
No, it's not Connell. It's John Mackenzie. And he came here because he was reluctant. I spoke to him a little on the phone. And when you speak to someone and then you feel, he's not really on board. He's sort of saying, yeah. But he wasn't really on board. And his wife was, or at that time his partner was, Emma Collins. And you could see it, she almost forced him to come here. And when he came in here, we've got our nutritionist lady that we saw when we were going through it. And we got her to come and explain about what she thought to us when we were going through things and give a little presentation. And they came in late and they knocked a lot of the stuff over from the projector, which was quite comical. And actually it was packed out that evening, wasn't it? There was standing room only, people were standing up here. And he met a lady named Bernie Walsh, who reversed her lung cancer. Sadly, she did pass away, and by her own admission, she said that I'd fallen off the wagon, gone back to things. And
she did incredibly well for a year.
She did it incredibly well because initially she got lung cancer and she got the cancer which had wrapped itself around like some badness in the lungs, and there was no hope. She could barely walk up the step. There was about 3 steps to the Richard Herod Centre, wasn't it, when she first came? And she actually reversed it. She got rid of the cancer, and so she was jogging about 3 miles a day. She got back to health, and she was at that meeting. And I think when John met this lady, like exactly like you say, when you meet someone, that's a wow. And it gave him the belief system to know that if she's done it, then why not me? And I think there's so much to be said for that. To be, you know, we've been told all this from the oncologist, you've got 4 months to live, or it's terminal, or whatever. That goes in, it penetrates. But I would say never lose hope, no matter what. I'm not standing here offering guarantees, but why not you? Why? If other people are doing it. We've got...
If anybody wants to see that video, I did film a little bit the second time they came. If anyone wants to get to know Emma online.
Oh, John Mackenzie. Yeah, so you tap into YouTube, Active Cancer Therapy
It's on my
Support.
Facebook page as well.
And John Mackenzie, you can see his testimony. Only a short little thing. I think he was quite shy and get it, but he did well when he got up, didn't he? He really did. And just these are some people who've actually had positive experiences. Can't say cure because that's illegal. But they've done well. And Riley Marilyn, basal cell carcinoma of the nose, and she used black salve. If anyone's a bit squeamish, then just pass it by.
Where's the best place to get that salve from?
Well, there's a couple of places that we're aware of, and there's a place, Loz's Wellness Centre. She does black salve, and then Alpha Omega Labs, and they're based in America. So there's a couple of options there. So Loz's Wellness Centre, Alpha Omega Labs.
What is it? Is it a cream or is it a...
It's like a paste. It's a topical paste, a black salve, and you place it on. I've actually used some, and I've had a bit of a problem. Maybe it's stress, whatever. But I had some health issues, and I've had problems with my skin, and I went for thermography, which found that I've got hot spots underneath my arms and hot spots underneath here. So I had a root canal removed, because root canals can be implicated in toxicity and inflammation. So the thermography, it picks up hot spots. Basically, it's picking up inflammation. So if you've got inflammation going on, then it'll appear warmer than other areas of the body. So if anyone's interested, I can't say that this is cancer, but I can say that it shouldn't have been there because I fetched out 5 tumour-like things.
I brought a couple that are on the table if you want.
Oh, right, okay. They're my little friends.
Maybe it's not a good idea to pass them around there.
Again, it's not nice, and it's very, very painful, especially under the arms. The last time that I did it was under this side, and I had to sleep with a towel underneath me because it was dripping with fluid. It was really dripping, and it was so painful. But it fetched out little gristly tumour-like things, what's termed as eschars. They call them eschars, and the whole process is called escharotics, using black salve. This has been going, it's been in use for many, many years, many centuries. And yeah, it may not be the right thing to use in every situation, but we've got another lady who took 4 breast tumours out using black salve. Generally speaking, it's better for tumours that are close to the skin. So you put it on, put a compress on there and leave it. And then what it does is to almost alert the immune system to the fact that there's something there that shouldn't be there. I'm I'm choosing my words right because I don't want to claim something that it isn't. But you can see the holes. You can see the holes that it created. So it's like there is what I am aware of, around tumour cells there's a fibrin protective coating, like a protein coating around it. And we can often use enzymes, proteolytic enzymes, to break down the protein around the cancer cell to alert the immune system that there's something there that shouldn't be there. Now with the coating it has an electrical charge, and the immune system has an electrical charge. So the protein membrane has a negative charge, the immune system has a negative charge. So the little T cells, the lymphocytes come along trying to find out things that shouldn't be there, bacteria and viruses and such like in cancers, and they bypass it because if you think of it like magnets, you try and put two negatives together, what's going to happen? Nope, can't do it, they're going to repel. And a similar sort of thing is going on there. This is my understanding. So if we break down that tumour, which has the sheath over it, then we have a positive charge. We have the immune system, which is negative, coming along, zap, there's an attraction there. And you shouldn't be there, I'm taking you out. Now I'm thinking that something along the similar lines is going on using black salve, because it's quite a quick effect. When I put it on the first time, I knew something was happening, something was responding. So if you imagine that this actually degrades that sheath, and then the body recognises it and it aggravates it, then the body actually pushes that away from it. It becomes like obnoxious. It's, nope, that's not being in here, push it out. And it pushes the eschol or tumour out, leaving a hole, which you see there, or with Riley Marilyn.
Which soon heals up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some little scars there. There's ways of minimising scars, but Riley Marilyn's looks amazing. It really does, considering it was just on top of the nose, right in front of people. You could barely notice. And she's actually come down all the way from, where is it? Newcastle, that sort of way, to share her testimony a couple of times to inspire other people.
And was that just using that alone?
I think it's important to realise that you should never focus just on one thing. I think that there's the nutrition, there's the detoxification, there's organic, there's juicing, there's vitamin D, vitamin C.
She's quite happy to share her protocol online if you want to get in touch with her.
Yeah, I think that people that focus, right, cannabis is the cure for cancer. I'm not saying that, that's illegal. But people who focus on one thing, then miss the point, and they would, I think, seriously compromise their body's ability to heal if they just say, well, that's the silver bullet, that's going to cure me. Well, it's nice to have that positivity about these things that are going to be good for the body, but that's only part of the armoury.
How long did it typically take?
How long did it take?
Yeah, for the
I think it was 4 days for Riley Marilyn for it to come out.
So 4 days, that's all?
I think it was 4 days, wasn't it? Mine took a little bit longer, about sort of over a week. I think it was about sort of 8-9 days, something like that. There's a little differences with the different ones because I took out 5. And actually on this last time round, I didn't mean to do all of it, but what happened, it slipped when I was asleep, and it went up, and it took more, it affected the whole area. Not recommended.
So if you put black salve on your skin and there's nothing to take out, it would still create some...
Well, this is the beauty of it. I mean, it can be a little bit, might make it a little red, but if there's nothing there, then it won't do much.
It won't do anything.
If there's something, well, with certain people in sensitive skins, it may make a little bit of redness. But if there's nothing there, generally speaking, it won't do
So
anything.
if somebody put it on a cyst and the cyst was benign, it probably did not affect it.
No, what it does is to target cells that are not right. So whether that be cancer, whether it be whatever this was, they weren't right. It was inflamed. Something was going on there, and it targeted what was going on there, and that's what it pulls and draws out. Cells that are, not good, not as they should be.
What's it made of? Is it
Okay, it's a combination of different herbs, and I think bloodroot is one of the main constituents. Chaparral. I think some of the things can be in the tea, the Essiac tea. Some of those ingredients in there, but there's a product which it causes a burning action as well. But again, that might be the irritant which causes the burning. But if you don't have any problem there, then it will be minimal, if at all. You can actually get an internal black salve as well.
There's the alpha omega 3 one, that's supposed to be really good for deep salving. You know, if you've got something really deep within you, it's quite potent stuff, isn't it?
We know that someone took some internal salve and they had a tumour pop out of the leg here. I'm not sure I should say who that is, but I saw it. So it's
So the
horrible.
body just pushed it out from where it was
The
out
body
of the
just
skin.
pushed it out. Now, again, it's not to say that you should just do this willy-nilly. Look to see if it is the right thing for you, if it's close to the eye or if it's close to something that could be damaged. But then we actually know someone that had a tumour probably the size of a football on his back, and you would never put black salve on all of that. But the term "how do you eat an elephant?" one bite at a time. Little bit, little bit, little bit, and starts moving it around, and the tumour is gone. So that's pretty incredible. It's something to look into and see whether it is the right thing in every situation. It's not the right thing in every situation. And there may be things to actually take with that to protect the body. This is the thing as well. When you start attacking a tumour cell, whether it be through radiotherapy, chemotherapy, black salve, or whatever you're choosing, then what does the body do if we damage ourselves? If we've got a graze on our hand, what happens?
Repairs it,
The
yes.
body automatically repairs. It sends out stem cells, which are undifferentiated cells, which means that they're not anything, but they can develop into whatever they choose to. So if you damage your eye, they can develop into an eye cell. If they damage your toe, they can develop into a toe. If they develop, whatever it is. Now you imagine the body being damaged by chemotherapy, and you're damaging a cancer. What do stem cells do? Undifferentiated cells, they can make themselves into anything. They go and repair that cancer. And so the end result is that you're worse off than the other. Initially, you might find that you've got a good response, because there's no doubt that these treatments actually break down cancer cells. So if you've got a lump, I don't know, as big as my fist, or a tumour cell, maybe. So we halve that through using treatments. But within that cell, you have what might be considered the infantry, the foot soldiers of cancer. And then you have the major generals, the stem cells. So we might see a serious reduction in this tumour size, but you've only taken out the infantry. And so what happens is that you damage that, the body's natural reaction is to go and heal itself, which why wouldn't it? The stem cells go out and repair, and basically you've got a cancer cell being repaired by the stem cells to recreate the cancer cell. Now you've got resistant cancer cells to chemotherapy, and they are probably more aggressive than they were before, because now you've got more major generals, so to speak. So it's an interesting concept. We need to support the body to heal quickly and well, and suppress, almost suppress the healing process, but to make it quick. And so you've got less of this, I'm not sure how you'd sort of say it. I'm certainly not the expert in all of this, but I get the concepts of what we've got to try to do. So what I used was turmeric. I used turmeric as a paste under here in some coconut oil, which is highly anti-inflammatory, so it's taking the inflammation down. I used clove oil to help deal with the pain. So in the mix I put clove oil. I stomped to heaven.
I know you did.
It wasn't nice, but these were ways of actually having anti-inflammatories to actually prevent the inflammation process and to inhibit metastases, to inhibit angiogenesis, which is the formation of blood vessels to the tumour, which feed it more. So these are things that we can do. Why would you do it anyway? Because it's in the medical literature. But you're not told that. Deep breaths.
I found it really upsetting that they wouldn't. We took the bottle of little jar of vodka that Rob put the lump in, and the doctor wouldn't have anything to do with it, would he? He didn't want to know.
No. They're not interested in anything that you're doing like that. Yeah, I just noticed them here. But they're not massive lumps, but they're very gristly, which is why I'm not saying it's cancer, but they are little things that gave reasonable size holes. Actually, some people say, well, he's damaged. In fact, the doctor said you've damaged your skin by using this salve. Actually, where 2 of these came out, I didn't even put the salve. So they came at the side of where the salve was. So they can't really say that. This was something that was there that shouldn't have been there. I can see a few people are interested in my body parts.
But you'd think they would have tested them, wouldn't you? Had them off the
That's what I was discussing with. They should do it,
They wouldn't
shouldn't they?
test. Did you want to?
No, leave them on the table.
No. Just put links on.
Somebody asked me to bring them.
Not everyone
at
does.
the last
I'll put it on
meeting,
there.
that's why I brought them. Not
You
that
want
much
to
of
look.
them.
The blackness on the top is the actual salve on that particular one.
Can I just ask you, you know you said that the tumour cells have got like a sheath or a coating?
Fibrin coating.
Yeah, how do you break that down? What protocols do you use to get rid of that?
Well, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, he was from America, and he was a guy that lost his life recently because I understand that many doctors have lost their lives in naturopathic medicine over the last 2 or 3 years, and he was one of them. An amazing guy, but you can actually look on his, he's done lots of interviews where he discusses enzyme therapy, and particularly proteolytic enzymes. And proteolytic enzymes are enzymes that break down protein. So this is a protein, the fibrin around the actual tumour, and so the theory is to have lots of proteolytic enzymes, and I think he ended up using pig pancreatic enzymes, proteolytic, in abundance, and he was getting some really good results with that. He was making some clear headway in terms of his research into cancer, which is probably why he lost his life. And that seems crazy. That seems mad. But this seems to be happening. I think there's about 80 or so naturopathic doctors that have lost their lives in America under strange conditions. So we won't focus on that, but yeah, that's the whole thing as well. So we included digestive enzymes, which contain amylase for breaking down carbohydrates and sugars, lipase, which are for breaking down fats, and protease, which is for breaking down protein.
And where do you get them from?
We got ours from the local health food shop. Basically, that's what we did. So, but I think the concentration on proteolytic enzymes, even having pineapple, bromelain, which is a proteolytic enzyme. If you have a pineapple, sometimes you get sore in your mouth because it's quite, and that's where it's degrading the protein and making your mouth a little sore. Sometimes it's stronger in some pineapples than others. So you can find that it's quite sore afterwards after you've eaten. You have it with pork, it helps to break down the pork. So that's a proteolytic enzyme. And we did actually have proteolytic enzyme from bromelain within some of the juices that we had. Although you might say, well, that's sugar. Well, yes.
It's natural sugar, isn't it? It's different.
It's a natural sugar, yes, but it's still high in sugar. But it was for a purpose. We had it in the liver cleanse. So it was a combination of a third of a pineapple, a clove of garlic, and ginger, about the size of a ping pong ball, and extra virgin olive oil, all blended together with a little bit of water to get a consistency that is comfortable to drink. And that was it. Someone's just come back saying that they used that and they want a different sort of liver cleanse because they hate it, which is quite an unusual mixture.
It's not the handle like the sound of it.
I only said I'd do it if you do it as well, didn't I?
You weren't keen on it at all, were you?
No.
But you did it.
Can I just ask you a question? My sister's had cancer on her face, and she's had a chunk cut out there, and she started with another piece about here. It's quite near her eye, and I wondered if she mentioned this, like, yeah, that's all.
Well, again, the benefits of it is that it only goes after cells that aren't right. And so it will leave surrounding cells. You've got to be very careful around the eye.
Yeah.
And some people, when you go researching this stuff online, the first thing you'll come across is the denunciation of this, that it's going to take off your whole face. It's going to look at this poor person that had the whole nose removed with black cells. So the surgeons would leave it, would they? No, they'd take your whole nose off. And they'd give parameters, they would give margins. And they don't know where the margins are. They're just, well, we'll give it this much margin, so we make sure we get it all, or this much margin, we make sure we get it all. But they're not getting it all because cancer is a whole body issue. And so without addressing these things, these issues, mind, spirit, body and soul, then you can take out tumours here, there and everywhere and they'll keep coming back because you've done nothing to actually address the underlying problem.
They actually have said it is a cancer again, but they're just keeping their eye on it. They're not like doing anything at the minute. But so to put it on, you just do it in like a poultice, is it? Like
in that area, you might get some swelling, a lot of swelling in the soft tissue of the eye.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do in that situation.
No.
But it would be. I would want to do very minimal application.
Yeah.
And to maybe pull it away from the area, because as in my case, I didn't actually, where a couple of those S-charts came from wasn't directly where the actual salve was placed.
Yeah. So
it came from above and below.
Away from it, yeah.
So if you were to maybe put it further down, maybe that one would radiate out and have an effect, so it wouldn't be that which is too close to the eye.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I can't give advice to do that, but do research to find out from more experienced people than me. I'm just daft and I stick it under my arms.
I think there's also cannabis oil, isn't there, with THC for skin cancer? That could be
Yeah, I mean, there's another testimony. We've got a guy called Ron Nixon. Many people may have seen his testimony. I don't know whether you have or not. But you can see that online, you can see it on YouTube. Now, Ron was 26 stone-ish, and we went round to his house in Hocknott to see him, and he got lung cancer, 4 months to live. He doesn't have cancer anymore. What this oncologist said is, Ron, you're no longer terminal. And the first time that he gave his testimony is online, and it was just so emotional. He said, I'm no longer, my doctors have said, I'm no longer terminal. No more.
It's 4 years ago now.
Yeah. Now, where I'm going with this, because we were talking about cannabis, he did actually use the cannabis, and he put it under his tongue, which, if it's THC, you'll get the psychoactive properties of it, which make you high. So maybe if you don't want that, then have it late at night. So then you get a good night's sleep and wake up in the morning. He vaped it, so basically it was going directly into his lungs, where the cancer was. And he also put it in rectally, through suppositories. And so he did it three ways. And he's done really well. It was amazing to see him. And I always remember his son saying on a Facebook post, he's only bloody done it. But Ron has been fantastic because he's sung it from the rooftops. You know, he's about 75 years of age, and he's been on programs. Did you interview?
No, I've not interviewed, but I would do.
No?
And anybody who wants to come on my show and tell the testimony, I'd love to get that out
Okay.
there.
Well, I know he's done a cannabis group, which was in America, and I think he's had several other interviews as well.
I'll get them on.
But the little tinker, he lost 10 stone in weight. I think he reduced his diabetes medications. What has come from this is that his brother, he was against what he was doing. He said, Ron, you need to do what the doctors are telling you. What the hell are you doing? And then Ron told him what he was doing, but he didn't know that his brother had also got cancer. Basal cell carcinoma all over his chest. We've got pictures of it, which I should print off, and all over his back. Now, he came to Ron and he said, Ron, you know what you did? Do you think it would work for me? He said, why, what's up? He says, well, I've got cancer on my skin. I've got basal cell carcinoma front and back. And literally, it was all over his chest. And he says, well, I don't know. We can try it. And he started putting it topically on his skin, changing his diet around, and now it's gone away.
And that was with cannabis oil.
That was with cannabis oil. I'm not sure of all the details exactly, but I was saying the other day we need to have a chat with Ron, because I don't even know Ron's brother's name. So that would be a good thing. So topically, inhaling it, under the tongue, on the top of the roof of the mouth, orally, in other orifices.
I was told on you, well, that's what I do, on the brain.
Well,
That's what Anna did it on.
it's going to, I think it will go into the system more efficiently under the tongue, but this is close, and to go through here, and to get it as close to where it needs to be, I think is a good thing. So if you have bowel cancer, if you have rectal cancer, by passage. If you have lung cancer, vape. If you have breast cancer.
I know that lady on the Truth About Cancer had brain tumours. She put frankincense oil on the roof of her mouth, didn't she? And it went through the brain barrier.
Yeah, so it's getting it close to it. And the other thing is that it will get into the bloodstream quite quickly, the roof of the mouth, the base of the tongue, sublingually. But there's what's called the blood-brain barrier. And not a lot gets through the blood-brain barrier, which is why chemotherapy is pretty useless in brain cancers. But oils and alcohols do. They go there. You know, just try having a bottle of vodka. It goes straight to your brain. But yeah, that's maybe not the right analogy. But spirits and oils do go to the brain. They get they bypass the blood-brain barrier. And so having these things, doing the ketogenic diet when you have brain cancer might be another consideration. It's not the right thing in every situation. I think a good foundation for anyone is to look at successful people in what they do. Look at successful organisations. And Gerson Therapy is a successful organisation. And so if you can take Gerson Therapy, and it's serious business, it's a full-time job, to actually empower yourself with 13 juices a day, 3 or 4 coffee enemas a day, 5 coffee enemas a day, and lots of big salads, and no sugars, and limited meat, or in fact there's no meat. So if you can take that as a foundation and work towards that, then that's empowering, because the research has already been done. And yeah, I mean, we talk about lots of things, but taking away that, start to research about what Gerson chose to do. And he was targeted.
Yeah.
He was seriously targeted. In fact, he was poisoned. 10 years before he died, he was poisoned, and they stole his book, which he wrote. Now, 10 years after that, he managed to rewrite the book, but they got him again. And they poisoned him. This time, he didn't survive.
So can I
This
mention
is crazy stuff, isn't it?
the interesting thing that I interviewed Patrick Vickers, and he obviously runs a Gerson clinic in Mexico.
Northern Barger Centre.
Yeah, and what he said is, of the people who come to him, about 40% of them, you know, they do improve in health, you know, remove the illness. But the other 60%, and he said the reason they don't is because they don't commit to it. You can't stick to it because it's a lifestyle change. And I had a question. I talked to him about what emotional support they do around that, and I think that's where the emotional health bit would come in, because that sense of purpose, that reason to commit, is missing in some people, because so many people have gone through so much trauma.
Yeah,
So I think emotional health and healing is a really fundamental part of that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stress in life, in everyday life. And also, what I've noticed is that some people, it's like they do amazing things, and then they drift off back. You can't do that. It's not like that. You have to stay strong. You have to stay with the protocols. You know, if you have scurvy, okay, I can heal myself with vitamin C and fresh fruits and vegetables, limes, lots of vitamin C. Okay, so now I'm cured of scurvy, right? I'm going to go back to eating biscuits and cakes and stuff like that. Oh, scurvy again. And you perhaps, having cancer, you're more susceptible to this a second time round. So it's really important that this becomes and is seen as your lifestyle. That this is not just a thing that you do and, right, oh, it's gone now, and back to normal. No, this is actually the change that you need for the rest of your life. And it takes, I understand it takes 21 days to change habits. And so it gets easier after that time. Sue was absolutely climbing the walls with stuff. I can't have what? I can't have bread and cheese.
Bacon.
Bacon? What? I can't have this meat? What? And she was literally doing a nut. But that was, I don't know how we got through that, because I was doing my nut. I was just really frustrated in
It just started to fall into place, didn't it? You just buy some decent cookery books and start getting back into home cooking, because most of us have lost the way with that, haven't we?
okay.
You must feel better just, you know, doing this stuff, some of this stuff, or just in your health anyway, how much more energy you
This
have.
is the aim, because what we've found is that this is not about cancer.
It's not.
It's not. This is about giving your body what it needs. And so it might be, I don't know, diabetes, might be heart disease, might be fibromyalgia, might be MS. All the principles are the same. Get the toxicity out, put good stuff back in, good fats, get all your supplementations through food preferably, but where we need to, where we're not having enough sunlight, we need the vitamin D3, which has an effect on every aspect of you and every function of your body. So, and most people are deficient in vitamin D. Calcifications are going on because you're not having vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K all together, which work synergistically to metabolise calcium. So you end up with calcium deposits here, here, here in soft tissue. And then, well, why have we got this? Well, it doesn't know where to go. Without the K2, it doesn't know where to go. So it's winding it up. So she's good fishing.
I think you ought to stop for a break.
Yeah, it's a good prompt. Because maybe I'm ready for a drink. How about you? So we'll have 10 minutes break, and then we'll resume with one of these and just bring that everyone back together. So